So we've been doing this show, and we're going to go around and introduce ourselves in a second. But John and I would get together for coffee or lunch, and we'd have these conversations that both of us, I think, really enjoyed. And at one point, we got into a conversation about some of our favorite podcasts. And I don't know, you guys raise your hand if you listen to podcasts. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea.
I'm sorry.
So, and you even have an iPhone. So we got into a conversation about, because it makes it easy.
Okay.
So we
Because it's only a podcast if it's on iTunes.
It's only a podcast if it's on iTunes. Well, because iTunes is probably the easiest way to listen to podcasts, in my opinion.
Feel free to put together a list of recommended podcasts other than the John and Joe show, because that's...
Ouch. Did she say... because it's obvious? That's obvious. It's obvious it's going to be the first one you download. So we had these conversations. One day we talked about how much we enjoyed listening to them. You've actually had
I've played
starter
with it a
test
couple of
ones.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he listens to a show called the Podcast Answer Man pretty religiously. And the guy teaches you how to basically the hows and whys. Why do you use this microphone? Why is your show 5 minutes or 55 minutes? Or I listened to one the other day, the No Agenda podcast, and it was 2 hours and 50 minutes long.
That's more like a marathon than a podcast.
Yes. And they do
Hello,
it
Alicia,
every
how are you?
week for 3
I've got
hours.
my radio. Joey and I have our radio voices on today.
Yes, we're using our radio voices today.
Okay. Can I sit by radio voice?
Yes.
Okay.
So anyway, we got to talking and we said, well, hey, why don't we get together and have these conversations and actually record them and turn them into a podcast? And so we did. And so on our show, we often talk about how we met and, well, which wasn't here, but how we congregate every week here. And that if people want to get to hang out with the John and Joe from the John and Joe show, they should come to Monday morning and hang out with us. And I don't know if anybody's ever done that. And nobody's ever said, I listened to the show.
I think we have 5 listeners.
Well, we had
now,
Mark.
so.
We had Mark Steffens, who we met because we reached out to him and then invited him to Monday morning, and he came. And he's even come back.
He's in Turkey now.
He's in Turkey.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things we also kept talking about was, wouldn't it be cool to do it to record in a place where we actually had some background noise and a little ambiance, and maybe even a live studio audience, which is kind of what we have today. And here we are. And so you guys get to be our little guinea pigs.
This is our beta test.
Yeah. So we may or may not even use any of this. So yeah. So as people begin to show up, now we have a few more.
Now everyone, as they show up, they're going to be like, "What in the world is going on here?"
All right. So let's go around the table and do introductions. What do we want to know? How about we keep it thematic?
Favorite podcast.
Favorite podcast is a good one.
Podcast.
Yeah. So we're going to who you are, what you do, favorite podcast.
Should we pass the microphone around? Will that really freak people out?
I don't think they're going to be
if they have a
comfortable with that.
microphone in their hand.
Shake your head, yes or no, if you want to actually have a microphone in your hand. So I got some. I wish I had a camera on that because
We've got one being set up here.
I know I got some circular motion and some funny stares with a little cock to the side with sort of a blank staring at the ceiling look.
Here. Well, let me start this because I remember when you and I, Joey, talked about networking. One of the things you said when talking about meetup groups, often people get into real estate, and so the first thing they do is they go to a realtor meetup group, right, and it's a bunch of realtors, and it's all the realtors pitching real estate.
How great a realtor they are.
How great of a realtor there are, and I mean that's great.
And that's not their market.
But that's not their market. And your suggestion, Joey, was go find like a dog club.
Yeah.
Or go find something totally
Right.
not unsell.
Well, and outside of
Outside of your industry.
yeah, I mean go
Because you're looking for people.
if you're a realtor, go to an internet marketing
Go to
event.
a chamber.
Well, the chamber's full of realtors too.
But you still have
And
to go
lawyers.
outside.
Yeah. Well, if the
outside.
chamber's having like an event for grocers,
Yeah.
go to that event because the
The lawyers would be good though.
yeah, the lawyers would be good for the grocer event. The lawyers would be good for realtors.
realtor.
Well, so my wife's a lawyer, and some of her best referrals have come from CPAs and from accountants and from
Because they're
realtors,
handling the finances of the family.
especially realtors, because so when you're getting a divorce,
Yeah.
sometimes before you even call the attorney, you're calling the
Call the
realtors.
realtor.
A lot of people try to do a divorce on their own, and so they know they need to separate their assets. And so the first thing they think of is their largest asset. They call a realtor, then the realtor calls my wife and says, I got somebody you got to meet.
Yeah.
So you're right. You know, the lawyers, the realtors, and if you're a CPA, go to the dog walking club. You know, and the cool thing about Meetup isn't about entrepreneurs getting together. Meetup's about people getting together. If you looked at Meetup, the grand total of meetups, the entrepreneur meetups make up probably less than 20% of them. You know, there's people who go to the movies, there's people who go hiking, there's people who ride unicycles, there's people who wear purple wigs. I mean, if you want to go and find really unique groups to hang out with, boy, I can tell you some of the really wild ones that I found.